They've hidden this from you your entire life. And I'm not talking about a metaphor, or some feel-good idea that sounds nice but falls apart under real pressure. No, this is real. A law so ancient, so powerful. It was once whispered in the sacred halls of Enki by Thoth himself. A law that flips everything you thought you knew on its head. A law that says the very moment you stop chasing, what you were chasing begins chasing you. They call it the reverse law, and it's the most dangerous secret ever revealed. Not because it harms you, but because it hands your life back to you. It strips power from the systems built to keep you small, anxious, and dependent. And it places that power right where it always belonged, in your hands. Here's the part that'll stop you in your tracks. You've been using this law every single day of your life. But you've been using it backward. You've turned it into a tool for scarcity, for stress, for spinning your wheels and getting nowhere fast. And it's not your fault. No one ever taught you the truth. Not your parents. Not your teachers. Not the voices you've trusted over the years. But today that changes. Because I'm going to show you exactly how Thoth intended for this law to be used, and once you understand it, no one, and I mean no one, will be able to keep you stuck ever again. But let me be clear. This isn't about blind faith. This isn't about belief systems or dogma. I'm going to walk you through the real stories, practical moments, and even give you a simple exercise that'll let you feel the universe move in real time, effortlessly. The only thing I ask is that you stay with me until the end. Because the most important key, the one that makes everything finally make sense, comes later. And if you miss it, the puzzle stays incomplete. But if you stay, and if you're open, your life could begin to flow, not from effort but from alignment. Not from force, but from resonance. So lean in, pay attention, because what you're about to hear might just undo a lifetime of struggle and finally show you how life was always meant to work. Let's begin. They've hidden this from you your entire life. And I'm not talking about some abstract theory or spiritual fluff you've heard from self-help books. This isn't about lighting incense or repeating positive affirmations until you're blue in the face. No, this is real, ancient, practical. A law so powerful it was once whispered by Thoth in the sacred halls of Enki. And once you understand it, really understand it, everything you've been working so damn hard to get, everything you've prayed for, fought for, waited for, it'll start coming to you. Without the grind, without the chase, without the decades of exhaustion. This is the reverse law. The most dangerous secret ever revealed because it does something terrifying to the powers that be. It puts your life back into your hands and takes it out of theirs. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you'll realize that you were never powerless. You were just misdirected. You've been using this law your entire life, but the wrong way. And no one told you. Not your father. Not your boss. Not your pastor. You've been running on a treadmill of scarcity. Pushing, forcing, trying to make things happen. And the more you tried, the more life pushed back. That's not just bad luck, my friend. That's the law responding to your misunderstanding. And it's not your fault. They taught us to chase. They taught us that hard work always pays off. They taught us to earn everything, to fight for every inch. But what they didn't teach us, what they deliberately kept out of reach, is that chasing isn't the answer. It's the problem. You remember those times, don't you? The ones where you bent over backwards trying to fix something, to make someone see your worth, to get that opportunity to get out of a mess. You prayed, begged, knocked on every door. You lost sleep, lost your appetite, maybe even lost a part of yourself in the process. And nothing worked. Not a damn thing. Until one day you were just too tired. You said, I'm done. You walked away. And suddenly, almost insultingly, it happened. The call came. The door opened. The weight lifted. That wasn't coincidence. That was the law finally getting a chance to do what it was designed to do, once you stopped getting in the way. I know it goes against everything you were taught. I'm not telling you to stop caring. I'm not telling you to sit on the couch and let life pass you by. I'm telling you that effort and control aren't the same thing. You've spent your whole life proving your worth by how hard you could push. But maybe, just maybe, the real test of a man's strength isn't how tightly he can hold on, but how gracefully he can let go. That's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? Especially for men like us. We were raised in a world where control was king. Where you were told that if you didn't make it happen, it wouldn't happen. Where silence was weakness and surrender was failure. But here's the truth Thoth tried to pass down. Before religion and politics and fear twisted everything. Surrender is not defeat. It's mastery. It's knowing when to act, and when to get the hell out of the way. It's trusting the intelligence of the universe more than the noise in your head. You've seen this work. Maybe you didn't have the words for it, but you've felt it. That moment when you stopped chasing someone's love, and suddenly they started noticing you again. That time you gave up trying to force a decision, and clarity showed up like an old friend at your door. When you were young, maybe you thought that was luck. But you've lived long enough now to know there's something else at work. Something bigger, something invisible. And that something follows laws most men never learn. The reverse law is one of them. This law says that what you pursue desperately will keep running from you. That the more you need something, the more life holds it just out of reach. But the second you release the desperation, the moment you stop needing it to complete you, that's when it finds you. That's when it shows up with quiet feet and a gentle knock. It's not magic. It's mechanics, energy, frequency. And whether you believe in all that or not, it's working on you every day. Let me ask you this, what has all your struggling really brought you? Sure, maybe it helped build a house, maybe it kept food on the table. But beyond survival, did it bring peace? Did it bring joy, fulfillment? Or did it just leave you tired, bitter, and quietly wondering if you missed something important? I'll bet you've had moments, maybe in the stillness of a quiet morning or the silence after a long conversation, where you felt that ache. That sense that life shouldn't be this hard, that there's something missing. That's your soul whispering, trying to get your attention. And that whisper is saying, stop forcing, start allowing. You're not too old to change. You're not too late to learn. In fact, you're right on time. Because the wisdom you've earned through living, the battles, the heartbreaks, the victories, and the regrets, all of it has prepared you to finally understand this. Young men chase, old souls receive. That's not weakness, that's evolution. That's strength. You don't need to play the old game anymore. You've earned the right to play a better one. And don't let anyone tell you this is passive. Don't mistake surrender for sitting on your hands. This takes guts, takes clarity. It takes a kind of faith that can't be faked. But once you get it, once you taste the ease that comes with trust, you'll never go back. You'll still take action. You'll still make decisions. But now it won't come from fear. It'll come from alignment. From knowing that you're not alone in this. That something greater is working with you, not against you. The reverse law changes everything. It teaches you to plant your seeds, your intentions, your desires, and then step back. Not because you're giving up, but because you're wise enough to know that growth happens in silence. The farmer doesn't yell at his crops to grow. He doesn't dig them up every day to see if they've sprouted. He trusts the soil. He trusts the sun. He trusts the process. Can you say the same about your life? I know how hard it is to let go. I know how terrifying it can be to loosen your grip on the things you care about. But what if your grip is the very thing choking the life out of them? What if the peace you've been seeking isn't on the other side of more control, but less? This is your invitation. Not to retreat from life, but to approach it differently. To stop living like everything depends on your effort and start living like everything depends on your energy, your state, your vibration, that inner hum that says, I am okay, no matter what happens out there. Because once you're okay in here, everything out there begins to change. You've been strong for so long. You've carried burdens that no one saw. You've fought battles without applause. Maybe it's time to lay the sword down. Not because you lost, but because you finally realized you don't have to fight anymore. Life doesn't reward the ones who struggle the most. It rewards the ones who align. If you remember nothing else, remember this. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your frequency. And your frequency is loudest when you're quiet. When you're still. When you've stopped running and started listening. That's where the power is. That's where the answers are. That's where you'll find what you've been looking for. Not in the next effort, but in the next breath. So take it, breathe in, let go, and get ready, because now you're finally ready to begin. You were never meant to live in a constant state of pressure. You weren't built to wake up every day with a knot in your chest, calculating, predicting, planning every detail like a man trying to hold back the ocean with a broom. But that's the world we were handed. That's the system we were raised in. Somewhere along the line, they replaced wisdom with worry, turned presence into performance, and told us if we weren't doing more, achieving more, controlling more, we were falling behind. But deep down, you've always known something didn't sit right with that. You've always felt the imbalance. And maybe now, for the first time, you're finally ready to admit it out loud. None of it ever made you truly feel alive. Let's get real about something. You've lived long enough to see through the myth of control. You've watched empires crumble, businesses fail, families split apart. All under the illusion that if you just push harder, things will fall into place. But how often did they? How many times did all your effort end in exhaustion, not peace? How many nights did you lay awake, wondering what else you had to do to make life obey you? You weren't lazy. You weren't ungrateful. You were misled, because effort without alignment is just friction. And friction burns you out. Thoth warned us about this long before we had words like burnout or anxiety or midlife crisis. He didn't write it down in a self-help book or post it online. He carved it into the universe itself. The more you try to control the flow, the more you separate yourself from it. That's the paradox. The modern world worships the ones who fight the hardest, hustle the most, sacrifice everything for some far-off reward. But nature doesn't work that way. The tides don't rush. The sun doesn't panic. The trees don't stress about when spring will come. They trust. They align. And somehow everything happens on time. Now I know what you might be thinking. That's nature. I'm a man. I've got bills, responsibilities, people depending on me. I hear you. Believe me, I hear you. You've carried weight that would crush most people. You've gotten up every time life knocked you down. You've been the rock when everyone else was falling apart. And that strength, it matters. But strength isn't just about how much you can carry. It's about knowing when to put it down. It's about realizing that maybe the real power isn't in forcing things to happen, but in learning to allow them. You've got to understand something about the universe. It doesn't speak the language of desperation. It doesn't respond to the energy of someone who's frantic, stressed out, or constantly bracing for disaster. That kind of energy creates noise, and noise pushes blessings away. What the universe responds to is balance. Not perfection, not effort, balance. When your mind and your emotions are in sync, when you've let go of the need to control everything, that's when the real miracles start to show up. And they don't feel like miracles. They feel like alignment, like coming home. Maybe you've noticed it in the small things. That time you stopped chasing a business deal and it came back on its own. That relationship you let go of that suddenly felt lighter, even healing. That moment when you finally said, whatever happens, happens. And then everything started to make sense. These aren't accidents. These are signs. These are little confirmations from a higher intelligence saying, yes, this is the way. But the question is, have you been listening? We've been taught to interfere, to micromanage, to not trust unless we've got all the facts, all the guarantees. But here's the truth. Control is often just fear dressed up in a suit. It's the ego's way of saying, I don't believe I'm supported, so I have to force everything. But you are supported. You've always been supported. You just forgot. You were taught to forget. And now your task isn't to fight harder, it's to remember. To remember that there's an intelligence far greater than yours guiding this whole thing. An intelligence that doesn't need your stress, your panic, or your spreadsheets. It needs your surrender. And don't confuse surrender with giving up. That's where most men get stuck. Giving up is hopelessness. Surrender is wisdom. It's the difference between drowning in the river and learning how to float. One fights the current. The other moves with it. And let's be honest, you're tired of fighting. You're tired of thinking every good thing must be earned through blood, sweat, and tears. You're tired of carrying the belief that if you're not struggling, you're doing something wrong. That belief is the real enemy. That belief is the weight on your chest. Let it go. You see, the more emotionally off balance you are, the more chaos you create. And I'm not talking about some new age theory. I'm talking about what happens in real life. When you're vibrating anxiety, the world reflects anxiety back to you. When you're vibrating scarcity, the world shows you more lack. It's not punishment. It's not bad luck. It's resonance. You get what you are, not what you want. And that's why this shift is so important. You've got to stop digging up your seeds every day just to see if they're growing. You've got to stop staring at the clock, waiting for your blessings to arrive on your schedule. Life doesn't work that way. Neither does faith. Real faith is planting the seed and walking away. It's trusting that the sun will rise, the rain will come, and the soil will do what it's always done. Even if you can't see it. Even if it takes longer than you wanted. That kind of trust? That's the foundation of peace. And peace isn't passive. It's powerful. Think about a time in your life when you finally stopped trying to force something, and it showed up anyway. Maybe it was a job. Maybe it was healing. Maybe it was clarity. You didn't stop caring. You just stopped gripping it so tight. And in that release, something opened up. That wasn't weakness. That was grace. That was the universe finally having room to work with you instead of against you. And the best part? You didn't have to do anything except stop doing everything. So let's bring it down to where it really matters. Your health. Your relationships. Your peace of mind. This isn't about abstract theory. This is about how you feel when you wake up in the morning. This is about how you treat yourself when no one's watching. This is about the story you tell yourself when things don't go your way. Are you still telling the old story, the one that says you have to suffer to earn joy? That you have to be afraid to stay safe? That if you're not in control, everything will fall apart? Or are you ready to tell a new one? Because here's the truth, the more you surrender, the more life aligns. The more you trust, the less you stress. The more you center yourself, the more the world mirrors that back to you. This isn't magic. It's law. And once you start living by it, everything changes. Not overnight. Not always in dramatic ways. But in small, steady shifts that you can feel deep in your bones. The right people show up. The wrong ones fall away. Doors open. Confusion clears. And you begin to walk through life with something most men never find. Inner ease. You don't have to believe everything I've said. Just look back at your life. The evidence is already there. The moments of alignment. The times when you let go and everything clicked. The peace that came not from doing more, but from finally doing less. That's the reverse law in motion. That's the ancient wisdom they never wanted you to learn. And now that you know, the question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you keep running the old race, chasing the carrot that never satisfies? Or will you pause, take a breath, and let life meet you halfway? Will you keep trying to control every outcome? Or will you trust that you are already part of something much bigger, much wiser, and much more capable than your fears ever allowed you to believe? The choice is yours. But one thing is certain. Peace isn't found in the fight. It's found in the flow. And the flow begins the moment you finally stop resisting. You've been told your whole life that what you want is just a matter of how badly you want it. Want it enough, work hard enough, sacrifice long enough, and it'll come. That's what they drilled into you, wasn't it? That desire equals outcome. That wanting something with every fiber of your being is a virtue. But here's the cold truth they never told you. Wanting something too much often guarantees you'll never have it. Not because you don't deserve it. Not because you didn't try hard enough. But because the very energy of need creates resistance. You've probably felt this, though maybe you couldn't explain it. You wanted peace, but only got more chaos. You wanted love, but kept finding disappointment. You wanted financial freedom, but the bills kept piling up. It wasn't because you were cursed. It was because you were out of alignment with something deeper, the energy behind the want. There's a part of you that exists beyond words, beyond thoughts. It doesn't speak in logic or arguments. It doesn't respond to plans or pressure. It simply feels. This is your deeper mind, what the ancients called the hidden field or the inner temple. Today, some call it the subconscious. But don't let modern labels fool you. This isn't some part of your brain you can hack with a few affirmations. This is the space inside you where all creation begins. And it doesn't care what you say you want. It responds only to what you truly believe. Not what you believe with your mouth, but with your energy. With your silence. With what you feel when no one's looking. So let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest. How many times have you said you wanted abundance, but deep down you were terrified of losing what little you had? How many times have you said you wanted love, but underneath it all you didn't think you were truly worthy of it? How many times have you prayed for peace, but couldn't stop obsessing about what might go wrong next? You're not alone. Most men live this way and never realize the trap they're in. They think they're creating their reality by speaking things into existence, when in truth, they're creating it by feeling the same fears over and over again. That's how the subconscious works. It's not moral. It doesn't judge. It doesn't care whether what you're vibrating is good or bad, fair or unfair. It simply takes what you feed it and grows it like a seed. You plant fear, it grows fear. You plant lack, it grows more of that too. But when you plant trust, when you plant certainty, even if just a flicker, that's when the game starts to change. Most men go their whole lives without learning this. They chase results on the outside, never realizing the real game is happening inside. And that inner game, it's determined by your emotional state at the moment of creation. That's why visualizing with anxiety doesn't work. That's why repeating affirmations when you don't believe them just leaves you more frustrated. That's why so many people quit before they see results. They're planting in poisoned soil. You don't grow roses in concrete. You don't build a house on sand. And you don't create peace from a state of panic. Let me give you something practical here. Imagine for a second that your subconscious is like a field. Every emotion you feel is a seed. Now, if you plant with fear, if the seed goes into the ground while your body is tense, your breath is shallow, your mind is racing, that seed absorbs all of it. And later, when it blooms with that same fear wrapped around it. But if you plant in stillness, in trust, in peace, then the fruit of that seed will carry those same qualities. The moment you set an intention matters. It's not just what you want. It's how you're feeling when you declare it. This is why the ancients did rituals at dawn or at night, in silence, in solitude. They weren't being mystical for the sake of mysticism. They understood that the conscious mind needed to quiet down before the seed could be planted cleanly. They knew that creation begins when the noise ends. So how do you do that? How does a modern man living in a world full of chaos, bills, and distractions find that kind of stillness? You return to the breath. You stop chasing thoughts. You take 5 minutes, just 5, and you sit. Not to fix anything. Not to achieve anything. Just to be. And in that moment, when your system calms down, when you're no longer in a state of, I need this to happen, that's when you plant your seed. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. Not with begging, but with gratitude. Not with pressure, but with peace. And if this sounds soft to you, if it sounds too gentle, then ask yourself, has your toughness brought you what you truly want? Has your grit produced more peace or just more fight? Because I'll be honest with you, brother, the man who can sit in stillness, who can control his inner state, who can send a clear signal into the field of creation without desperation, that man is a warrior in a way few understand. That man moves mountains not by force, but by frequency. He doesn't push. He doesn't chase. He aligns. And the world responds. There's a shift that happens when you begin to create this way. You stop looking at life as something to conquer and start seeing it as something to harmonize with. You don't stop wanting things. You just stop needing them to feel whole. You don't stop setting goals. You just stop attaching your worth to the outcome. And from that space, you become incredibly magnetic. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Life feels it. It's like you're no longer broadcasting a signal of I'm not enough, but one of I already am. And maybe the most beautiful part? You stop suffering. Not because bad things never happen again, but because you stop resisting them. You understand now that everything, yes, even the pain, has a role. You stop blaming the outside world for every delay or setback and start looking inward, adjusting your vibration instead of your strategy. You become the man who isn't shaken by the storm because he knows he is the storm. And storms don't ask for permission. They just are. You've spent decades being the provider, the protector, the fixer. You've carried more weight than most will ever know. And now you have a chance to become something even greater, not by doing more, but by being more. By returning to your own center. By remembering that your greatest tool is not your muscle or your mind, but your inner alignment. That calm in your chest. That clarity in your gut. That unshakable peace that says, I trust life, even when it doesn't go my way. You're not too old for this. In fact, you're just getting started. The wisdom you have now is the very thing that will make this process easier. You've seen too much to keep believing in the old way. You've fought enough battles to know that winning isn't everything. And now you're ready to master something deeper, something quieter, something that was always there, waiting for you to notice it. So here's what I want you to take away from this. What you feel is more powerful than what you say. What you believe deep down is creating more of your life than anything you post, speak, or plan. And if you want different results, you don't need to do more. You need to feel different. You need to shift the energy you're broadcasting into the field. Because the universe isn't listening to your words. It's listening to your signal. And when your signal changes, your world changes. It's not magic. It's not fantasy. It's ancient wisdom. It's divine mechanics. And now it's yours. All you have to do is choose to use it. Let the noise fall away. Let the fear dissolve. Let the pressure go. Return to the silence. Plant your seed. And watch what grows. There's a stage in life when you begin to see things differently. Not because someone gave you a better answer, but because the same answers no longer satisfy. You start to question the very ground you've been standing on. You look back at all those years you spent chasing, fixing, proving, and wonder, was any of it necessary? Was all that strain actually helping me? Or was I just repeating the same exhausting loop, hoping the next breakthrough would be the one that made it all make sense? This is where many men give up, resigned to the idea that life just didn't work out the way they thought. But the wiser ones, the ones like you who are still seeking, still listening, begin to realize something profound. They realize that the battle was never out there. It was always within. And the real victory was never about winning the world. It was about mastering your own inner environment. There comes a time when the noise has to stop. The inner commentary, the pressure, the false urgency. It all has to go. And in its place, something entirely different begins to emerge. Stillness. A kind of silent faith that doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't scream for results. It doesn't beg the universe to hurry up. It simply knows. It vibrates in quiet certainty. And the moment you step into this state, everything around you starts to respond differently. It's like life has been waiting, watching, holding back your blessings not to punish you, but to protect you from receiving them before you were ready to carry them with peace. See, what nobody told us when we were young was that silence is a weapon. Not silence from fear or silence that comes from giving up, but a protective silence. A sacred quiet that guards the soil where your desires are planted. Most men sabotage themselves not because they dream too small, but because they interfere too much. They get impatient. They overthink. They stir the soil of their intention until they destroy the very roots they hoped would grow. You've probably done it yourself. You get inspired, you set a goal, you visualize. And for a while, you feel the momentum. But then doubt creeps in. Nothing happens right away, so you start checking the results, second-guessing yourself, trying to help the process. And in doing so, you smother it. Thoth taught something that flies in the face of our entire modern culture. He said that creation doesn't thrive under pressure. It thrives under peace. That once you've set an intention, the greatest act of faith is to step back and trust. Not in weakness, but in confidence. Because only a man who truly believes can walk away from his request without clutching at it. The one who doubts keeps knocking. The one who knows simply waits. That's what you're being asked to do now, not to give up, but to become still. To create a protective field around your inner world so your seed can grow without disruption. You have to become like a warrior, not with a sword, but with presence. Guarding your mind, protecting your emotional state, standing watch over the garden of your becoming. And the enemies you face won't be armies or invaders. They'll be thoughts. They'll be fear disguised as logic. They'll be well-meaning people giving you advice rooted in worry. They'll be headlines designed to shake your faith. You don't argue with them. You don't fight them. You simply don't let them in. That's what real strength looks like at this stage of life. Not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to remain undisturbed. You've earned the right to live like this. After everything you've carried, after all the times you put yourself last, after all the seasons you endured without answers, you've earned a kind of peace that doesn't need proof to exist. But here's where it gets interesting. When you live in this kind of inner silence, your vibration becomes pure. And a pure vibration is magnetic. You no longer chase. Things begin to come to you, not because you forced them, but because your field is now clean enough for them to enter. They feel safe around you, aligned with you. You become the answer to the prayers you used to shout. I know it sounds strange, almost backwards, but that's the entire point. This is the reverse law. Everything works in the opposite way we were taught. You don't create by pushing. You create by trusting. You don't manifest by obsessing. You manifest by letting go. Not letting go of the dream, but letting go of the noise around it. The neediness, the fear, the hunger that says, I can't be okay until this happens. That hunger is the wall, and silence is what tears it down. Let me be clear. This isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's not about burying your head in the sand or ignoring reality. It's about recognizing what's happening, honoring it, but not letting it control your inner state. That's the difference between survival and mastery. Anyone can react, but the man who can respond with peace, with calm clarity, with faith in what's unseen, that man becomes unstoppable. You've probably seen this happen in other people. That friend who always seems calm and things just work out for him. That guy who doesn't talk much about his plans but somehow always ends up in the right place at the right time. That's not luck. That's resonance. That's a clean inner field sending out a clear signal to the universe. And the good news? You can do it too. It's not reserved for the lucky or the spiritual elite. It's available to any man who chooses silence over stress, presence over panic, surrender over control. And you don't need a temple or a mountain or a retreat to find this silence. You can do it in your living room, in your truck, on your porch before the sun comes up. It's not about the location. It's about your state. It's about whether or not you're willing to stop interfering with the miracle that's already trying to happen in your life. That's the part most men never get. They want change, but they won't stop meddling. They plant a seed and then keep shouting at it to grow. But the most powerful thing you can say to your intention once it's set is nothing. Let it breathe. Let it root. Let it do what it was designed to do. And when the doubt comes, and it will, you don't fight it. You just observe it. Like a cloud passing through the sky. You return to your center. You remember what you planted. You remember why. And you hold the line. That's the protective silence Thoth spoke of. Not an absence of thought, but a refusal to give power to thoughts that don't serve you. The deeper you go into this practice, the more you'll see how much energy you used to waste. Arguing, proving, fixing, chasing. And slowly, you'll start to feel that peace isn't something you chase. It's something you become. And once you become it, you'll be shocked at how quickly everything else begins to align. You've been through enough storms to know you can't control the wind. But you can adjust your sail. You can decide what kind of man you want to be, not when things go right, but when they don't. That's where your real power is. Not in outcomes, but in your internal posture. And the posture that moves mountains is the one that stands tall in silence, with unwavering faith. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. Not to start pushing harder, but to finally stop. To trust that the seed you planted is sacred. That the soil knows what it's doing. That life is not against you and it never was. You were just too loud to hear it answer. Be quiet now. And let it grow. There comes a point in every man's life where he no longer needs more knowledge. He needs embodiment. He doesn't need another quote to pin on his fridge or a mantra to repeat when things get hard. What he needs is to live what he already knows deep in his bones. You're there now. You've heard the words. You've felt the truth stir inside you. The reverse law isn't just a concept anymore. It's calling you to live in a completely different way. Quieter way. A more powerful way. A way that doesn't rely on force or chase or noise, but on resonance, surrender, and certainty. And I know that's hard, especially when you've been told your entire life that if you're not doing, pushing, chasing, controlling, you're falling behind. But I'm here to tell you the truth. Man to man. That old story was a lie. A well-packaged, well-marketed, socially accepted lie. And it's time to walk away from it. You don't need to hustle to be valuable. You don't need to prove your worth by how busy you are. You don't need to wear your stress like a badge of honor. That's not manhood. That's bondage. You've done your years in that prison. And now it's time to be free. Free not in a reckless, detached way, but in the kind of freedom that only comes from deep trust. When you stop trying to force life to give you what you think you need, and start trusting that what is truly yours is already moving toward you. You don't get that kind of trust from books. You get it from experience. And brother, you've lived enough life to trust the unseen. You've seen things fall apart and come back together in ways you never could have predicted. You've lost things you thought would break you, and you're still here. You've witnessed how life has a strange, sacred timing. Not always fast, not always comfortable, but always wise. So the question now isn't, can I trust the process? The question is, am I finally willing to? Am I willing to stop trying to fix what was never broken? Am I willing to let go of the steering wheel and let the current take me? Am I willing to live from my center instead of my fear? Because here's the paradox. The moment you no longer need what you want, it arrives. The moment you stop clutching, life places it in your hand. And not because you begged or worked yourself into the ground, but because you finally became the man who could receive it. This law isn't about what you get. It's about who you become. It's about becoming the kind of man whose energy says, I'm ready, not whose mouth says, I want. And you know what's wild? Once you live like this long enough, you stop wanting things in the old way. You stop obsessing over outcomes. You stop needing to be seen or validated or admired. Not because those things don't matter, but because you realize that none of them make you more whole. You're already whole. You've been whole all along. You just didn't know how to feel it. That's what the reverse law teaches us. That everything we chase on the outside is just a mirror of something we think we're missing inside. But when you sit in stillness, when you operate from faith instead of fear, you remember who the hell you are. You're not some broken man trying to piece his life back together. You're a quiet storm, a lighthouse, a field of gravity so strong it pulls the right things toward you without you having to lift a finger. And when those things show up, when the relationship clicks, when the money flows, when the doors open, you don't jump for joy like a starving man finally getting a bite to eat. You smile. Because you knew. You knew it was coming. You knew it had no choice but to come. Because you'd already become the man who matched it. That's what changes everything. Not the reward. Not the result. But who you become along the way. You become steady, grounded, clear. And that clarity becomes a force. It magnetizes. It simplifies. It strengthens. You don't need to explain it to anyone. You just walk into a room and people feel it. That's power. And not the kind of power that dominates others. The kind of power that makes other people feel safe around you. The kind of power that comes from a man who doesn't flinch when life gets loud. Because he's found something quieter and stronger inside himself. This is the lifestyle of the reverse law. Not a technique. Not a hack. A way of being. It means you wake up with intention but without attachment. You set goals but don't worship outcomes. You do your work but release the results. You speak to the universe in prayer, but you know when to shut up and listen. You plant seeds in faith, and you don't dig them up every week to check if they're sprouting. You water them with gratitude. You wait in peace. And when they bloom, you don't say, wow, I did that. You say, of course it came. It had to. And then you move on. That's the key most men miss. They think once they get what they want, the journey's over. But the reverse law doesn't end. It evolves. The moment you master surrender in one area, life invites you to do it in another. Health, family, legacy, death. This law walks with you until your very last breath. And the more you live it, the more you become immune to the chaos. The world still spins. People still panic. But you walk differently, talk differently, think differently. And if you've ever wondered what true freedom feels like, it feels like that. So now the choice is yours. You can go back to the old way, back to effort, tension, control, back to being the man who thinks he has to earn every breath of joy. Or you can take this leap. You can step into a new rhythm, a new posture, one that says, I'm done living like everything depends on my grip. One that says, I trust life because I trust myself. You're not too old. You're not too late. In fact, your age is your advantage. You've seen enough to know that most people are lying to themselves. But you're not lying anymore. You're ready. Ready to stop interfering with what wants to happen. Ready to stop blocking what's already yours. Ready to stop surviving and start flowing. And if this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a truth you've always carried but maybe forgot, then do me one favor. Like this video so it reaches another man who's been grinding in silence, aching for this same clarity. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because this is just the beginning. There's more to uncover, more to remember, more to awaken. You're not walking this path alone. I'll be right here, helping you live the law that finally sets you free.